Hey everyone, my name is Michael Gamilla. I'm the programming director of ImageOut, and welcome back to ImageOut. And thank you for choosing to watch Gossamer Folds. And we have some special guests with us today. So let me welcome them. First is the director of Gossamer Folds, Lisa Donato. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
And we're also joined by the producer and actress Yardley Smith.
Hi.
Hello. And today I'm being joined by Joey Moser from Awards Daily, and he'll be helping me moderate this conversation. So thank you guys for joining us in this virtual craziness. And I'm excited for this conversation because Gossamer Folds is one of my favorites in the lineup, and I keep recommending it to people, especially those people that keep complaining about, oh my God, everything is so heavy. And I feel like your film, has a lot of heavy points, but the general feel for it is more heartwarming, and there's a lot of light moments to it. So I don't. I still consider it as something lighter than most of the things that we have in the lineup. So I'm just wondering, who got involved with the project first? Was this something that Lisa, you knew you're going to be directing and then pitched into the producer, or was this a project that was pitched into you, Yardley, and then you had to recruit Lisa to do the directing? Just want to know how it all started.
Yes, it's the second scenario you described, where a friend of mine, an old friend of mine named Adam Carl, who's actually a producer on the film, brought me the script. He knows the writer, Bridget Flannery, and so I read it and I really loved it right out of the gate. And my three producing partners, so I'm, look, I'm a middle-aged straight white woman. My three producing partners are middle-aged straight white men. So, but we, I feel like the best thing that Paperclip, the company I co-founded, does is we find the best, smartest, like-minded, most creative, enthusiastic people. We draw them into our orbit and we get them to drink the Kool-Aid with us. And so I was absolutely sure that we would find somebody like Lisa and like Alexandra, who's our star, to make this film as glorious as it is. And we did.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, the casting is perfect, but we're going to go back to that. But going back to Lisa, this is your directorial debut, right?
Yes.
Which I'm surprised because I know you as a writer, director, you've directed a lot of, you wrote a lot of the things you've directed. So I was surprised that you chose someone's script to do your directorial debut. Was that your plan all along, or you feel like you haven't come up with the right material, so you might as well direct this, or were you just so in love with the project that you couldn't resist?
No, I didn't really have a plan. What I knew, I made a goal. I was like, I am ready for my feature. I just want to direct a feature. I think I said it at the beginning of 2018. That was my goal. By the end of the year, I'm going to have my first feature gig. So I had been working on some of my own projects, and then this script got sent to me by my team. And immediately I was like, yes, I want to direct this. It just jumped off the page for me visually. And then I met with the producers, and it was just like love at first sight. And I just feel so lucky.
Lisa, talk about, if you don't mind me interrupting for a second, Michael, because Lisa, she has a great story about her ethos and her sort of her mandate about directing when she's directing projects that are LGBTQ+. And Lisa, talk about that, because of the language in this film. You had always said many years ago, do that. It's a good one.
Yeah, well, I left a corporate career behind to chase this dream to direct movies, because I didn't see myself. I love movies. I was always writing skits for my friends to be in. And I knew one day I was going to pursue this dream. And while I was watching movies, I would hear, some of that homophobic language that were being used. And I made a promise to myself that I'm never going to direct a movie that uses like that derogatory language, because it's like, why? Why do we have to use that language? And then here comes a script that is literally like, it's a pretty big plot point in this film. Violent language, transphobic language. And the reason why I chose to direct it, because all of my films are for and about the LGBTQ community, and I'm trying to, normalize the experience and change the narrative and hopefully change the world. But this film was different in that it was an experience where we're seeing hate being learned, and this language wasn't used senselessly and at the expense of a LGBT character, which we see all the time. There was purpose to it, and so that stuff still happens to this day. I mean, I just got called an effing dyke the other day, because of what I was wearing, and I was wearing pride colors, and this stuff happens all the time. I just say thank you. Now I just own it, but. I think this film really used it well and did a really good job of taking this language and showing that process that hate is learned.
Joey, you mentioned to me something about that, about hate being learned and not born with.
Because I kept thinking the whole time that I was watching it that I was reminded as children we're not. We don't automatically hate somebody for someone being different. I feel like there's a curiosity that we have with people, and that's what I think is so lovely about the chemistry between the two lead actors, Tate and Gossamer. I was sort of wondering maybe, since hate is not something you're born with, something you're taught, like, is that just something that lesson something you kept in your mind while you were making it? And do you think that we unfortunately need constantly reminded of it?
I do, yeah, and absolutely. Especially in the current times, we are just in such a polarized culture right now, and it's devastating. And I think this can all be unlearned, because we weren't always like this. Yeah. And we've learned, I don't know if anybody's seen The Social Dilemma, that documentary yet. Everybody should watch it right away. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But there's a lot about that learning experience, that we learned how to use social media, and then it's, turned us into this type of society that we're in right now. But absolutely, that I kept that at the forefront of directing this film. It's very important to me because it feels hopeful. It feels that we're not just born, these ignorant a-holes that hate each other, that we can, if we can learn it, we can unlearn it. And to me, that is a very hopeful message.
I mean, you guys have said a lot of good things about the film, but I noticed that, Yarly, you mentioned that as soon as you read the script, you fell in love with it, and same with Lisa. And I also read somewhere that Alexandra, had the same reaction as soon as she got the script and read it. She fell in love. What particular thing about the script or the story really struck you and really got your attention that you want to be part of it?
I really loved that it's this unexpected, unlikely friendship between two characters that you probably I can't remember ever seeing, a trans woman befriending her next door neighbor who happens to be a 10-year-old boy. And Lisa touched on it before, and part of her mission in life is to normalize the experience of being part of the LGBTQ community. And I always say when I describe this film is that I loved this unexpected friendship, that they really just take each other at face value and then really get in there and get to know each other. And oh, by the way, one of those characters happens to be trans, as opposed to it being a story that only focuses on the discrimination and the bigotry that trans people experience every day. Excuse me, certainly back in 1986 as well. And it's not that we don't address that, but there's also, for me, the film is also a message of great hope. And that there are stories about war, actual war, like World War II, World War I, all the wars, that people on opposite sides, if they've had an opportunity to actually meet and connect as human to human, that all of those biases and prejudices fall away. And Tate has a choice to make. He can either follow his father's lead, who is, who is throwing these disgusting slurs at Alexandra's character, at Gossamer, who has already made up his mind about her, or he can say, you know what, screw you, fuck you, I'm going to go off and see, who this person is. She looks really interesting. I'm bored to death. I don't know. Let's see what's there. And I love that. I love the purity of the curiosity in both of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's something actually towards the end of the film where Tate asks Gossamer's father, "Oh, Gossamer was born a boy," and then after he answers the question, that's it. Like there's not, like, that's the only question that he had really about it, and then he can just move on with, like, it doesn't change his relationship, nothing like that. I think that is a very beautiful, pure thing that I personally thought was really, really amazing about the movie.
Thank you. Yeah, I just got chills when you said that. I just wanted to tag on to what Yardley was saying too, is that for me, what I loved about the script was I loved how nuanced the relationships were. I think it's really important to show, what surprises me most about this film and what I love the most is actually the relationship between Edward and Gossamer. And that the parents' journey for a queer kid is hard. I mean, my dad is very liberal and, democratic all the way, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. He had a really hard time with me coming out of the closet, and it really impacted our relationship. And then we finally got there, but it's a messy and complicated journey. And I love how Edward portrays that in the film, because it is a messy, complicated journey. He misgenders her. He's not ready to let go of this idea that he had. And I thought that it was just written so well. So that's why I loved it.
And I do have to commend you, Lisa, because I feel like the portrayal and of all the characters, they're all done with a little dignity and thoughtfulness. Like, there's no big dramatic arc for anyone. It's just like, here are the problems and we're dealing with it the best way we can. And, Edward, is transphobic, but he's not portrayed as really this hateful person. That it's a person that is processing, what is presented to him that he's not familiar with. And he might be processing it for years now, and it's taking him that long to really deal with it. But still, there's a little respect, even though he doesn't know what to do. And even, the father, Tate's father, is not really portrayed as this terrible bad guy. So I kind of like that about the film. There's some dignity in their portrayal and the way you directed that. Now, I guess my question is, was that intentional? You didn't want it to be a clear villain in the movie, and even Gossamer wasn't portrayed as a victim. I mean, that she has her struggles, but she's feisty and she's ready, but she still feels vulnerable. Maybe you can just talk about your process in fleshing out these characters for your film.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's conscious. I think it's just real life. I think, we're not all bad people. All villains, have a good side too. And all, I guess, heroes or protagonists have flaws. And so I just feel like we're dynamic as human beings, and I try to bring that into my work and all of my characters as much as possible, because it's boring if we're just like, singular tracked characters. I think it's just boring to watch. And so I spend a lot of time working on my characters with my cast. That's one of my favorite things is working with actors. I mean, I go down to the level of like making them playlists and, you know, picking their favorite colors and, you know, the top 10 questions of who these characters are. They really know who they are when they step into that, and they can just kind of be free in that space.
Does that include choosing the wigs that Gossamer wore?
It was all Alexandra.
I felt like, oh my God, maybe their wardrobe budget all was spent on her wigs. It's like, I don't think she repeated a wig or anything like that. But
I loved her wigs. I loved them. I loved the whole wardrobe for Gossamer in particular. It's so fantastic, colorful and expressive and not shy. Like, this is who I am. I'm living my truth, and all the rest of you can get that. Like, whatever.
Yeah, a lot of those colors that she wears sort of just really pop out. Like it's like bright colors, very feminine. I piggyback on that too because I love.
And so 80s.
And metallic. So when I first started watching it, I actually didn't read up on the synopsis or anything. I just know it was the relationship between the boy and Gossamer. So I didn't know that the timeline was the 80s, but as soon as I start seeing her clothes, like scene after scene, I'm like, this is so 80s. It's like, oh, okay, so this is, when I started the clothes of the other people, it's like, okay, I think it's probably 80s. And not until, the letter that she sent and I saw the postmark, it's like, okay, it is 86, so it is the 80s. But there was one thing in that scene with Jimbo and Gossamer. There was a head in the background with this blonde wig and this fabulous headdress, and I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for that scene where that's gonna be worn, and it never happened. So I'm like, that was a wasted opportunity. Anyway,
there could be a sequel.
I digress. I just we started talking about the wigs and
there's actually a lot of really great detail in the production design. We had a great production designer. So everywhere you look, there's something really cool from the 80s in the background.
Awesome.
Yeah, even in her shop is so colorful. So there's probably a lot of details that. And kudos to you, Yardley. I'm sure you have a hand as a producer on a lot of things that's going on. So, and I started to mention earlier, the casting is amazing, especially of the kid, Jackson Robert Scott. So were you involved in the casting at all? I mean, either of you or?
Yes, we had a phenomenal casting director named Russell Boast, who, he's the one who put the word out. We hired him, obviously, as a casting director. And so pretty much everybody submitted their audition on tape at first before we met them. Jackson Robert Scott was number one on our list sort of from the get-go. He'd just done a short film called Skin. And everybody's like, oh my God, that kid, can we get that kid? And he works all the time. Like, he works more than all of us put together. I'm not even kidding. So he had actually a very short window, which is part of why we went into production like that. Like, we were like, okay, we found Lisa. My company can produce. All right, that's good. Let's go. And then Jackson was available because in the new year, we shot it late fall in 2018. He was going off to do a television show. Alexandra was probably the second, I don't know, she was like the second or third tape I saw for Gossamer audition. She was the number one choice from the minute I saw her. She was the one to beat. Nobody even came close. So that was easy. That was a slam dunk. And then really, by then we had Lisa on board, and Lisa was obviously incredibly instrumental in nailing down the rest. So I, as a producer, I sort of feel like, again, in terms of if I've done my job well, which is draw those best, smartest, like-minded, most creative people into my orbit and gotten them to drink the Kool-Aid, then I trust them also to do the thing that we've hired them to do. So I try to not get too meddly.
I wanted to ask something about the casting, because I think when you have a movie that has, you know, a relationship between a child and like a young adult, I think that has to be so tricky. But the chemistry between them is so relaxed. It's so easy. I was wondering, Lisa, if maybe you could talk about just sort of like creating that dynamic between them because of like one person's being so young, than younger than the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really hard to work with a kid in a feature film, especially your first feature. That was definitely the hardest part about the whole experience. But you know, Jackson's a pro, thankfully, and we didn't have a lot of prep time, so it was really important to me that Jackson and Alexandra spend as much time together as possible and actually build an authentic relationship. So a couple of times we sent them, you know, to different places in Louisiana. We sent them to New Orleans to just be tourists for the day. We rehearsed scenes every single night, and sometimes, and then we played. We had a lot of playtime. You know, I taught Jackson martial arts. We had our secret handshakes. We just, you know, made sure that he's still a child at the end of the day, you know, and this kid has so much energy. It's like he never burned out. So it's like we just had to, you know, create language of, okay, now you can be a kid, but now I need you to be Tate, you know. So and also Jackson and Alexandra really had that kind of relationship. I mean, they fell in love. They, like, between takes, Jackson would go straight to Alexandra and start holding her hands and swaying with her, and he just felt so safe with her. It was really sweet. And so they just brought their real relationship into the movie.
He, for a kid, he has a very mature approach to how he handled the character without, you know, looking old or sounding old, which means it's forced. But I think it's very natural. And same with Alexandra. She was just so natural as Gossamer. So that's amazing for you guys. Now, was it your decision, Yardley, to be part of the movie? Or was that just a producer saving money?
Well, it wouldn't have been much money that we saved. I prefer to think of it sort of like my Alfred Hitchcock drive-by appearances. So Gossamer is the third or fourth film that we've produced as Paperclip Limited. And I was in the first one, and Gossamer, we have a thriller out now called Alone, which is doing very, very well. And I'm not in that one, but there's only really two people in it. And I guess I couldn't just, and it takes place in the woods most of the time. I couldn't just like, hey, anyway, just walk by, get my morning hike. So, I mean, it's fun. I like to, first and foremost, I'm an actress, and I have Lisa Simpson, whom I adore. I love it all. I love it all. So I was really happy that everyone said, yes, you can play mean old Phyllis. So.
As soon as she showed up on screen, and I'm like, she looks so familiar, and she sounds so familiar. And when I looked you up, it's like, oh, no wonder. But I didn't automatically attach you to Lisa Simpson. But it did sound familiar for me. We have a question from someone on Eventive, and it says, it's from Lauren, and she's asking, Yardley, what was your favorite part about working on this film?
Well, that's a good question. It's a broad question. I feel like my favorite part was really watching it all come together under Lisa's direction, and seeing those glorious performances by Jackson and Alexandra and Franklin Ojeda Smith and Shane, and I just, you hope that when you invest, because Paperclip funded this movie solely, we didn't go outside to do it, to get the dough, and you hope that when you invest that much time and energy and cash into something, that it will turn into the beautiful project that you see in your head when you first read the script and as you start to assemble your team. But of course, there are no guarantees. There's so many things that, I mean, Lisa, it was like 1,000 things a day that went off the rails. And when you have a micro budget, there is no slack. There's no slack to sort of go, oh, that's all right. We can pick up an extra day, or no worries. We got this, plan B. There's no fucking plan B, people. Here's the situation. How are we going to deal with it? We got to make our day. So, but I do love that. I love it's sort of fly by the seat of your pants. I'm scrappy by nature, and I had an amazing team. I just loved watching them all gel and get the thing done in the best, most extraordinary way.
So, well, that's a great answer. But I'm also wondering, when you mentioned that for the audition that Alexandra did, that she was already your number one pick. I was wondering if you had actresses auditioning that are cisgender, and were you really, when you sent out the call for the role, did you really want a trans actress playing the role?
Yes, yes. I think we had some cisgendered women audition for Gossamer, and also there was not through Russell Boast, our casting director, but there were also sort of general submissions as it sort of went out on the wire. So people would send in their tapes. But for us, for me and my producers, there was never any question that it would be a trans actress. Absolutely 100%. All you extraordinary cisgendered actresses can send all the tape you want, but this isn't good. This is for you. This is not your role. And we didn't know how hard or easy it would be. But honestly, Alexandra just dropped from the skies like a gift from heaven. And there it was.
And then you also have Jen Richards. So it's amazing for you to really cast transgender actresses playing the transgender roles.
It had to be that way.
Yeah.
And we also we were also absolutely dead set on having a director from the community. There was no way there was going to be some like white middle-aged man who's, straight no matter how talented, this is not your movie. So then Lisa dropped from the sky like a gift from heaven. So I really, really believe that if you proceed with passion and integrity, success will follow.
And so it's probably easy for you, Lisa, though, because it seems like a lot of the decisions were made before you joined the project.
Well,
yeah, I mean, they were ready to roll, right away, which was kind of scary, for your first feature. It was like, okay, I gotta step up to the job. So.
And I read, and I didn't know this when I watched the movie, the cinematographer is also a transgender woman. And I was wondering, maybe from your point of view, why it was important to have her sort of telling this story.
Mm-hmm.
through a transgender person's eyes.
Yeah. It's very important. I had worked with Ava Benjamin Shore on another short that I did with Jen Richards, which was There You Are. I might have screened at your guys' festival. I can't remember. But a film, and I think I talked about this before, but a film is made up of thousands of decisions that are, put together. And when you put some, people in creative positions that have that kind of life experience and they can relate to the characters or the storyline, then it just makes it that much more authentic. And Ava, her sensitivities, she's very concerned with how trans people are portrayed on screen, and she studies it. And there's a different way that cis male cinematographers and cis male directors light and frame female characters, and a lot of that is subconscious. And Ava studies that, and she was perfect for the job.
As a writer, did you have to collaborate a little bit with the writer of this film and make changes because of finally you're doing this, and you also have a certain vision, and maybe it doesn't necessarily agree with everything she wrote. Was there any type of collaboration on the writing part of it?
Yeah, we added a few scenes. We rewrote a few scenes. Yeah, we had probably 2 or 3 new additions after I came on board with the script. The ending changed.
And also, Lisa, talk about the language, because that's an interesting story, and even as harsh as some of the language is in this film, there was a whole lot more.
Yeah, so there was a lot more derogatory language, and I probably cut maybe 50 to 75% out, because you just need enough to get the point across, you know. And it was hard as a queer woman, as a having a trans DP, and then hearing these characters in multiple takes and multiple angles say, you know, some of that language over and over and over again. It's just like you feel it. You start to, like, you know, internalize it. And so we had to take breaks, and yeah, but we did cut a lot of that out of the script.
I feel like that comes naturally to you as a queer person. And I imagine it won't be the same if a non-queer person was directing. You wouldn't have that thoughtfulness for your crew and your cast who are, you know, who might feel insulted, and, you know, just hearing those pounded in their head take after take, you know, would affect your day or your energy. So I think that's great.
Thank you.
And I even wondered when I saw the scene towards the end between Alexandra and Shane, where she goes sort of toe to toe with him, I even worried for, you know, Alexandra as a person, like maybe having to do multiple takes of that. I feel like maybe, you know, her being a trans woman, that has to be so hard. So I imagine, like, creating such a safe space for all of these people has to be so important. That has to be so hard. Yeah.
But that scene that you just mentioned has my favorite line, you know. You know, I happen to be wearing my ass-kicking dress.
Yeah.
Ass-kicking dress. I love that line.
It's a great line.
Which I think is so catharsis. Well, I know this was very catharsis for Alexandra. I mean, number one, she really connected to the storyline and the character. She, you know, felt a lot of just empathy and connection to a person that's trying to leave their small town in pursuit of a dream. And in a lot of ways, this whole film was very cathartic for her, you know, to have this, like, happy ending that she also gave herself in real life. So.
And Alexandra is very practical, having, you know, we've had her on other panels talk about how Gossamer's story is not unlike her own, although her family cast her out, and I think she's not spoken to them in like 8 years, and she had an enormously difficult upbringing, and yet the resilience of her spirit as a person it's breathtaking. And so when in doing those scenes where Shane, you know, is calling her all of these horrible names, Alexandra has such a fortitude already built inside of her. It's, you know, you would say, well, it's not new. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt, but it means that she has already decided, and you can tell, I think you can tell in her performance, that behavior from Shane's character is not going to bring her down or stop her even for a moment in her tracks. She will go toe to toe with him, and she will win. And I think that authentic spirit that lives inside of Alexandra as a trans woman really comes through beautifully in this film.
Great.
The one other thing that I was thinking about while watching the film is what does the character of Jimbo serve in the movie? I guess. I'm thinking, okay.
I love him.
I mean, I love him, but I'm like thinking, his inclusion must mean something, and I'm trying to process it. Is it just because you know, Edward and Gossamer never really cared about? They just really are helpful people. They don't care what color you are. You know, it's almost like if I take out Jimbo's character, it will still be the same movie, right? Not that I want to take him out.
I mean, kind of. He serves as, well, number one, we had to cut a few of his scenes, unfortunately. He did have a little bit more of an arc and presence in the script, but, you know, sometimes things get chopped in Final Cut. But you would never have that scene with Gossamer in the bedroom, where she finally says, why is this so difficult? Why can't you call me by my name? Like that's such an important scene. And so he serves as like, a friend of somebody just to make that scene happen. He also serves as this childhood friend that knows Gossamer before and after, and also struggles with the misgendering, and also is trying. So yeah, and also to show like how caring Edward is to like take him in, take care of him, that he's a good guy. He's not, his misgendering is also maybe could be forgived a little bit.
And because you mentioned it, I just remembered now that I think the film also drives the importance of owning your name, especially for transgender people, but also for people to start respecting that there's already a lot of injustices for queer people, especially the trans community, and then if we can't even give them that, their name. And I love that at the end where she was talking to Tate about through the letter, talking about defining yourself, but it's also giving Tate the meaning of his name, that okay, you exist because now you're in this list. So I love that it's not just about trans people, needing to own the name, but it's everyone. You define yourself and you need to be recognized. So it's not just a trans issue, but it's for everyone.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I guess there's no question in there, but
that's a great point. And I got chills again. I'm getting chills this whole conversation.
I know. I got emotional when I saw that part because I had to watch the film again. Right. I mean, and Joey's always a crying mess anyway. So
yeah. That hammered it home for me. I saw that part and I was like, oh God. Yeah.
And I also love that scene, the dream scene with the fireflies and the beautiful gown. It's like she's an apparition. And I almost feared like, oh my God, does that mean that she had an accident somewhere? And this is the way you're telling us. But I'm glad that even though she's not in the final scenes, her presence is still felt very much with that letter that, we were talking about. So I did like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think what an extraordinary compliment to Alexandra and to Lisa for viewers to feel as though Gossamer is still present, even though she's not physically in the frame. That's, you don't get better than that, Lisa.
I know.
Yeah,
it's so true.
Yeah, you guys did a wonderful job. And I've been hearing a lot of great things from our audience. Because it started showing this weekend, and I hope that a lot of people still watch it. And I think this is what's great about a virtual film festival. I noticed that a lot of people are watching things that they won't normally watch when they're in a physical film festival. I don't know if it's the freedom of just being at home, or the fact that you can watch things on your own time, and then you feel like you can be more adventurous with your choices. And especially those with passes, like, they don't have to watch everything completely if they don't like it, but they're willing to try. And I noticed that a lot of people are watching more trans content and watching more documentaries, because people are also not watching a lot of documentaries, I feel like. So that's one great thing about this virtual, if there's any good thing that comes out of it.
There's a lot more flexibility.
Yeah, and sometimes, we only think about the challenges, but I always think of the opportunities of that is presented to us with this new platform and the new format. Anyway, I feel like I'm taking too much of your time, but I feel like I could chat a lot more. Joey, do you have anything else that you want to ask, or?
I guess really the only other question that I would have really is, I wondered what you both would think would be similar and different if the movie was not set in the 80s, but if it was set, obviously outside of a pandemic, like if it was set in like 2020 or even the 2000s, I know that there are, some things that unfortunately would be very similar, especially like the language that we spoke about and how some people feel that they have the freedom to assault people with that language. I was wondering maybe if you could tell me what you may think would be similar and different if it was set in a different time period.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the story itself, I think could happen today, easily. I think what's different is, just the way that Tate navigates through learning information is so different. I mean, he had a pocket dictionary. That's basically his window into educating himself on the world.
They have like an iPhone now or something.
Yeah, and so and then there's so much information out there, so it's like, I guess it's the difference is like seeing one definition versus like thousands of definitions and being able to distill from a lot of different stuff versus like being told one thing. So the way in which that experience happens would be totally different, but I think it would be, very similar. It would play out just, I
agree. I mean, just piggybacking on that briefly, I think that a lot of the misgendering and a lot of the biases that Gossamer encounters, both implied, as like we don't see her go out into the world when she goes to work, but we know what happens there, would not be that different. And which is perhaps partly why this film resonates so much. It's not a kind of, it's not really nostalgic in that regard. The nostalgia is visual, but in terms of experience, it's quite current. And to Lisa's point, Tate carries around this little pocket dictionary, which is a little microcosm of information, whereas now he would just be drinking from a fire hose. And I guess I will say, by setting it in 86, because Tate, if it was set now, Tate would be able to find out what that word means instantly in the first 5 minutes.
That's right.
But it takes him the entire film to find out what that is. And there's great kind of, I actually think there's kind of anticipation and satisfaction in that journey that a child could not be inundated with so much information that it's instantaneous and it's negative, and now he has to make another decision. Instead, he gets to know Gossamer without having that label laid on top of her, at least in his own mind, because he doesn't know what it means. And I think, again, it creates an opportunity for them to form this beautiful, beautiful bond, because he hasn't been poisoned by it. And then when he finds out, he's like, well, that's not the Gossamer I know. And so I don't need that. I don't need to keep that in my lexicon.
Oh, also, and the music wouldn't be as good. That was done today.
Now, was that a song that Sarah already did? So it's not Fireflies I'm talking about. Did she do it for the movie?
She wrote it for the movie.
Wow. Well, you guys are amazing, and and connected, I should say.
Again, though, Michael, it's that thing, like, proceed with passion and integrity, and success will follow. And the most incredible people will show up to do the most incredible jobs.
Yep.
It never fails, but you can't reverse engineer it. You got to do it with your heart. It has to be, be who you are in the world.
Yeah, and you guys did such a great job. I also want to ask, Lisa, did you have our friend Nick Neon do a cameo in this film? Because
I did.
He's so great.
I did.
I saw him and I'm like, is that Nick?
Of course. I will have Nick follow me anywhere in the world, or I will follow him anywhere. I love Nick so much.
Yeah, I think one time he got programmed at Inside Out in Toronto, and like after that, every year he's there. It's like, are you just coming up with projects as an excuse to go to Inside Out?
Maybe.
Yeah.
But it's so happy to see him. I haven't seen him in a while, but anyway, well, thank you guys for spending this time with us. You guys did an amazing movie, and I hope it gets to be seen by a lot more. I know it's doing a lot of the festivals right now. What else is the plan for the movie?
Yeah, selling it.
On the streamers, you know?
I think it's so easy and light. And in fact, sometimes it's not a negative thing that people will start comparing it to a Lifetime movie kind of thing. Just probably because it's easier to digest, even with the heavy themes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a negative, but I do feel like that it broadens the possibilities of who can pick it up for you guys. So I hope that happens if it hasn't yet, and soon, because I think more people need to see this.
Yeah, it's a real crowd pleaser. I would love to see this in a theater full of people. I'm sure everybody wants to see this in a theater full of people, because especially some of those moments, like I can already hear people like clapping to them and like yelling.
Yeah.
I want that so badly.
Oh, me too.
Or screaming at the screen.
Yeah.
So
that too. It is one of the horrible ironies and disappointments that Lisa's first incredible feature comes out during the fucking pandemic and everything is shut down. And so, I know, Lisa, you've spoken about how much you were looking forward to that live experience, and connecting with an audience is it's not why we do it, but it is one of the cherries on top. And to not have that experience is not our preference. It's just
basically you were robbed. I mean, it's the same we have a lot of first-time filmmakers in the festival, and it's the same thing. These people were robbed of that premiere experience of, doing the red carpet somewhere and getting that special treatment from the different festivals. So, but maybe we can all bring it back, like special screenings and have people as guests. That would be nice. And before we go, the other one thing that I love about the lines, my second favorite line is it Madeline, the lady that brings all the tuna casserole?
Maybell.
When she said to Edward that you obviously have a problem recognizing strong women. Yeah. I'm like, ooh, I just cheered on that.
That's an audience.
It was so subtle, but you know what she meant, like a little dig here and there. But anyway, thanks again for being here with us and for joining Virtual ImageOut. It was a pleasant surprise that this conversation took so long, and you guys were great. So
thank you.
Thank you again, and good luck with the project, and hopefully we'll see you around.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.